Good morning, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the pre-market webinar for the morning of Thursday, the 17th of July. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at chartingthemarkets.substack.com, and it's published on YouTube after a delay of 24 hours. All right, great. Okay, let's have a look at, well, yesterday, obviously, we had a bit of excitement as Trump was floating the idea that Jerome Powell might be fired, and then that was retracted, so there's a bit of excitement. We went lower there. I was quite pleased it went lower because it set up a much better potential head and shoulder neckline, because I'm thinking either we're forming an head and shoulders right shoulder and we go down directly and we have an awful lot of fixed daily sell signals here, so there's a risk more or less of that starting any time. Or we go up and make the high retest on YM, which would give us the only two things we're missing here really in the short term, which is, although we've had a new all-time high on Dyer, we haven't seen one on Dow, actually on the Dow Industrial directly. And the second thing is, we haven't retested the last high on the Dow, so we don't have any daily sell signals there. It would be nice to see that fixed, and there's not a bad setup for it, but it's not complete. In terms of the head and shoulder setup on NQ, it's not as nice by any means, and actually, wait a second, even when I tilt it up slightly, it doesn't quite make it to the head and shoulder support, so I'm not liking that as much. Could be setting up a double top there. RTY, we've already got a head and shoulders which is broken down, and at the moment it's consolidating. We'll see if that breaks down towards the target, then that target would be the monthly pivot. YM, we've got a decent looking flag channel here, but and it is a big but, we don't really have a corresponding pattern on Dyer, so I quite like this, and I'd love to see it make target. Don't know whether it's going to. DAX, we've got a possible double bottom here, and a break up would basically set up a retest of this high. ESTX, we had a double bottom here, but oddly this went down when DAX didn't, on that power announcement. But this is setting up what looks an awful lot like a bull flag, although I don't think we've got a decent support trend line for it. Not really. But if it is a bull flag, then it is starting to break up. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, and Dyer, we don't have an obvious flag set up here. Kind of looks like a bull flag, but we don't really have the full setup. We do have an RSI 14 buy signal that is fixed and hasn't made target yet, but it wouldn't take an awful lot for that to make target. We had an RSI 14 sell signal, and that has made the possible near miss target yet, and it doesn't need to go any lower. And obviously main support is the daily middle band, which was tested on this move down. Looking at ES, we've got both RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals fixed. SPX, we've got the same. Main support is obviously still at the daily middle band. You probably remember me talking about when we were testing it here as the main, as being the main support, and it still is. We've not seen any real weakness below that, and until we see that, we're still technically in an uptrend. On SPX, even if I think we're topping out. On the hourly chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, hasn't made target yet, and on SPX, we've seen a break below the rising wedge support. That's not necessarily definitive. We could, of course, be, if we went up and hit that trend line, I'd just redraw that through this latest low. But given the overall negative divergence here and given the news background, I think there's a pretty good chance that we are topping out here. Looking at the Qs, nice support at the daily middle band as well, not close to testing it so far. We've still got a possible weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing here, which is the only one that's still brewing. Then we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed. We've broken down below rising support. We've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the hourly chart. Does the head and shoulders look decent on here, even if it doesn't look decent on NQ? Yes, it does. And I'd be reading this, and it's only a small pattern here, but topping is a process. I'd be thinking about retests and possible head and shoulder necklines, and I'm really thinking this is a topping process which would probably take weeks. We will see how that develops. So I don't think we're quite there yet. We haven't got to the point we got to in February where we've got a nice looking topping pattern, big topping patterns set up across the board. And it would take weeks, at least a couple of weeks, to reach that level. So if we're going to, we'll see. All right, looking at IWM. We have a weak RSI 14 sell signal fix, we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fix, and we are down, testing rising support and the rising support trend line and the daily middle band. On the hourly chart, no current divergence. You can see we went very slightly below it here. I think that puts us in a topping process here on IWM. There is a possible head and shoulders forming here. And on the 15-minute chart, we actually had a 15-minute RSI 14 buy signal. I hadn't marked it in, but it had already reached possible near miss target anyway. We'll see. But I think this is something that can break down any time, but I'd quite like to see a higher high if it can be managed. I'm not quite sure. Well, I don't think we've really got any news that would justify a new all-time high, but it doesn't mean we're not going to get it. All right, DAX, we've got strong support at the 50 DMA and the daily middle band, both of which are basically the same level at the moment. We haven't quite tested that yet, but if we see a break below it, then that would be a real sign of weakness. Okay, we're testing the daily middle band, holding at the moment. I'm skeptical about this reaching 42.4. It's still a possibility, but I think on the bigger picture, this IWM, I think I'm reading this more as a rising wedge, which is likely to break down. I'm thinking this inverted head and shoulders is likely to fail. I'm just struggling to see it actually making target in this current news environment. All right, let's have a look at DX. Now, DX, this was the spike down when Trump was talking about firing Powell. And this is the move up after he stopped talking about that. We've got a 60-minute sell signal fixed on that move down. We're coming back into a retest of the high. This could be the second high of a double top, or we could just continue higher. And you can see I've got the first possible big higher chest neckline in the 99 area. On ZB, head and shoulders broken down, and on ZN we've got a head and shoulders broken down, and we've got the same on TLT, and we've got an IHS which is broken up on TNX. I'm quite liking these to make the targets. Certainly, as soon as the big beautiful bill was passed, I was thinking really it was time for another retest of the lows on bonds. I'm not expecting that to break through because I think these lows will be defended heavily. The Treasury was, when we were last down here, the Treasury was buying bonds, and it would be buying bonds again, and maybe buying bonds already. We'll see. On CL, I'm still leaning towards the downside here, not so much because of CL, although there is a decent case for coming back and retesting this low area here, 63.64, with the rising support at 64. But on HO, we've got a possible head and shoulders forming, and it's nice. On RBOB, we've got a double top breaking down, and it's nice. We're seeing weakness at the daily middle bands on both of these now, and the CL chart has been holding the daily middle band as resistance. In G, we're going up through the first possible inverted head and shoulder neckline. No current divergence. I'm wondering if this is going to get us back up into a back test of the monthly pivot at 3.696. I haven't really got a pattern set up here to take this higher, which is disappointing if we are going to go higher. But we could well see a fail here near the monthly pivot, and that's the next big area which we're going to get to. Now, GC, I was looking at this yesterday, and I redrew the wedge resistance trend line and found that actually it was a very nice wedge resistance trend line, which I'd managed to miss on my previous look. And this is now breaking down. This is, I think, really setting up a retest of this low. And what I was talking about as well was on SI, we had reached some very big trendline resistance. I'll just run through that in case you have not seen me talking about that on the bigger picture yesterday. This is the trend line I drew months ago, I think, in the 39 area that I was talking about. And on the daily chart, there's a different trend line, which is this trend line here, which I also drew. And you can see we did pretty good touches of both of those. This is a big resistance, and I'm wondering about some reversal here. I don't think we've got a really solid rising wedge here. Actually, I'm sorry, just going to take a moment and check that. It kind of looks like it might be, but to my eye, it looks as though we haven't got one. Not a great support trend line here. But it's the resistance trend line I'd mainly be watching. Let's have a look. Yeah, it hasn't quite reached the obvious resistance trend line. Hasn't quite reached the obvious support trend line either. Not an awesome wedge, but not horrible. But not sort of policy that I'd be looking at as something which would definitely play out. But we have reached the 39 area. We have got possible decent resistance here, and we're waiting to see how that develops. On palladium, we've got probably needs a retest of this high, I think. On platinum, still got a possible double top or part formed head and shoulders, but it's not a great looking pattern. HG, obviously we've got this 50% tariff coming in, and historically on the metals tariffs, Trump hasn't actually really been putting those back much. So I think that's probably coming in on the 1st of August. We'll likely see a lot of buying before then, and probably quite a lot less buying of it afterwards. Looking at the currencies, we've got on USD/JPY, we've got a possible double top forming here. USD and GBP USD had a bit of a spike yesterday when we had the power announcement. They've pretty much entirely been given back now. The interesting one here is Australian dollar, where we've got this very nice looking double top that I've been looking at for several days, and that's broken down. So watching that with great interest. This might be just a sign that the dollar is going up here, which I don't think is which I think is probably right. We shall see. All right, KC. KC looks like a bear flag forming. No really nice trend lines for it yet, but we will see. SB, this now looks like we've got over the monthly pivot. If we can hold that, then the upside is potentially considerable. And we've also reached, we've also reached the possible inverted head and shoulder neckline that I'd been looking at. And let's just extend that along. Hang on. You see? So we could form a right shoulder here and could go particularly, a fair amount higher. But I am thinking that now that we've got over the monthly pivot, if it can convert this, obviously we've killed off the little level top was forming here, and obviously this has got the potential to convert and go higher. CC is extending lower. I was talking about this as my lean when we were setting up potential level bottom here, but at the moment we're not seeing any real positive divergence or sign it's going to go up. CT, we had a head and shoulders fail here. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this high in the 69.5 area on lumber. Double top is trying to break down here. We shall see. This chart's going to be complicated by the roll, which I think is likely to be, I think it's happening now, and I'm likely to roll the charts this weekend. Is that one of the ones that's coming up? We'll see. All right. Looks like we've just rolled on the daily chart. ZW, I'm leaning towards seeing a bit lower. Corn, I'm seeing a bit lower. Soy, I'm seeing a bit lower. And all of these I was looking at in detail on the bigger picture yesterday. On soybean oil, I was leaning towards seeing a retest of this little high here. And we're seeing that at the moment. Live cattle, this was looking like a potential level top, but no longer is. So it looks like we're just continuing up at the moment. We do have a 60-minute sell signal fixed on lean hogs. Nice looking falling megaphone here. Hasn't broken up yet, but that would be my obvious theme. This could be a bull flag setting up a retest of this high here in the 113.5 area. We shall see. All right, great. Let's have a look at questions. All right, I think that's it. So on ES, I would love to see a retest of the high, particularly on YM. But we've got a huge amount of negative divergence. We've got daily sell signals fixed on the RSI 14 and RSI 5 on both SPX, ES, and IWM, and we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed on NDX. We could start seeing these play out at any moment. I would love to see Dow go just a little higher first. See the full retest of the all-time high on the Dow chart directly and set up some negative divergence on the daily. Are we going to see that? We shall see. All right, great. In that case, I think it's a wrap. I'll catch you guys later. Everyone take care.